A man faced a heart-wrenching choice when a doctor gave him a 5-minute ultimatum. He had to decide between saving his unborn baby or his wife in labor. In those fleeting moments, he made a difficult decision that would have a lasting impact on his life. What was supposed to be a moment of pure joy and excitement turned into a dramatic turning point for Anthony and Rachel. As Rachel nervously held Anthony's hands and looked into his eyes, tears welled up, and she gently revealed unexpected news. "We're expecting a baby," she exclaimed, her cheeks turning rosy and her eyes brimming with warm tears. Anthony's face lit up with a broad smile, and he enveloped his wife in his arms. Tears filled his eyes, and he expressed his profound happiness, feeling like the luckiest man in the world. But in reality, he was faking it. Deep inside, he could feel his heart sinking with heavy disappointment and fear as he was not ready for this baby. 27 and charming, Anthony had always dreamed of a successful career. He constantly dreamed of climbing the corporate ladder and wanted to achieve name and fame in his field. And children had never been a part of his vision. Anthony had even shared his dreams with Rachel not long ago, and she'd agreed to postpone baby planning. But something had gone wrong despite Rachel being on birth control, and the sweet surprise of their endless romances was now growing inside her. But to Anthony, it seemed that his dreams were about to change. Everything was about to change. He loved his career, but he loved his wife even more, so he pretended he was thrilled when she announced the pregnancy. "We are sorry, but we may either be able to save the mother or the baby." Despite his inner conflicts, Anthony knew he had to put on a brave face for his wife's sake and happiness, as he couldn't bear to see her upset or hurt, not when he loved her so deeply and madly. Anthony excused himself, telling Rachel he wanted to celebrate the good news with his friends, and drove to the pub. His mind raced with a million thoughts, haunting him if he could really be a good father. The weight of the situation suffocated Anthony, and he knew only one person could help him, his best friend, Kevin. As Anthony sat across from his pal in the dimly lit bar, he felt a weight lifting off his chest when he finally revealed the truth about having children. "It's not about my promising career anymore, buddy. You know how much it means to me and how far I've come. It's just that I don't want to be left out of the picture and watch my wife giving all her attention and love to the baby all the time." Anthony poured out his deepest fears and insecurities to his friend. The truth was that Anthony was afraid of having a child because he loved Rachel so deeply, and was insecure that she would start loving their baby more than him. "I've seen it happen to everyone. It happened to Paul, my colleague. He and his wife were so happy together, but she stopped paying attention to him once their baby arrived. And Jake, the list is huge," said Anthony, gulping a shot of vodka. He couldn't bear the thought of losing his wife to someone else, even if that someone was their own baby. Anthony wanted to spend the rest of his life with Rachel, just the two of them. He wanted to grow older with her without any distractions and responsibilities of parenthood. As Anthony finished his confession, Kevin reached across the table and comforted him with a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "Love is funny and complicated, don't you think?" he said, his voice tinged with empathy. "But do you really have a choice now? Your wife is pregnant and she's so happy. Do you really want to ruin that for her? Think again. Maybe your life would be entirely different and happier with this baby. And if you truly love Rachel, you would do anything to make her happy, even if it means having this baby." His friend's words struck his heart like an arrow bearing wisdom. Anthony returned home that evening, having decided to keep this baby for his wife's sake. As time passed and as Rachel's baby bump started to bulge, she had to undergo a string of tests and appointments, a tradition every expecting couple followed. However, one such visit with the doctor turned into a nightmare for both her and Anthony. As the couple sat in the doctor's office, anxiously awaiting updates about their unborn child, the doctor entered and delivered a piece of news that rocked their world. Rachel's pregnancy was not progressing as expected, and there was a high risk of an early birth. Anthony's heart sank as he watched tears gush into his wife's eyes. He knew how much she'd been looking forward to becoming a mom, and the thought of their baby's premature birth was unbearable. The silence in the medical room haunted Anthony, and the doctor's words kept ringing in his head as she explained the baby's health, the risks that came with such a delivery, and the need for constant monitoring and care. As they left the hospital, Anthony took Rachel's hand and forced a smile, reassuring her that everything would be all right and that such premature births were not rare. But deep down, Anthony knew something was going to go terribly wrong, and the fear of the unknown future crushed him. As they drove home, Rachel suddenly broke his silence by asking him to make a promise. It hit Anthony like a ton of bricks when his wife gazed into his eyes, and with a heavy heart, asked him to promise her he would always choose their baby no matter what happened. Anthony's eyes widened in alarm and worry, and he could feel his heart cracking at the very thought of losing Rachel. "No, I won't let that happen, all right. I can't imagine a life without you. I'll do anything to keep you and the baby. But if I have to choose, it's always gonna be you. I can't lose you. Never." Anthony broke into emotions as tears spilled down his cheeks. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect both of you. Don't say that again. It hurts even to imagine." Anthony could talk no more, and he could feel his heart pounding faster as if it would explode in his chest. He could not imagine losing his dear wife and had decided that if such a situation arose, he would blindly choose to save Rachel over their baby. Time fleeted by, and at the end of the 7th month, Rachel felt stinging cramps in her belly. She knew something was happening inside her, and before she could fathom anything, she was put in the ambulance and hurried to the hospital. The day Anthony had feared had arrived, and the doctor's predictions came true. Anthony anxiously marched outside the labor ward, his gut churning with fear to see his wife and their baby. Finally, the doctor came out with a piece of tear-jerking news that was about to push Anthony to the edge of a cliff. "Mr. Reynolds, it's going to be a complicated surgery. Your wife isn't doing well, and the baby's umbilical cord is twisted around the neck. We are sorry, but we may only be able to save the mother or the baby. We have only 5 minutes to decide." Tears poured down Anthony's reddened face when he realized he had to choose between saving his wife or their unborn child. His hands turned cold and lifeless, and fear consumed him as he stared into his wristwatch. Time was running out, and each second counted as the doctor returned to the ward, patting Anthony's shoulder to be strong and decide soon. "Please, Jesus, help me," he cried, his voice cracking with emotion. "What did I do to deserve this? I can't lose both of them. They're both my world. Please help me." With tears blurring his vision and a heart shattered to a million pieces, Anthony collapsed to his knees. Just then, someone clutched his shoulder tight. "Do you love your wife?" A nurse stood behind him, her eyes brimming with compassion. "More than anything," Anthony replied, tears streaming down his face as his voice choked up. "Then you must choose the option she would choose," said the nurse, her words ringing in Anthony's ears. "When you truly love someone, you would do anything for them. The highest manifestation of love is to overcome yourself and put the interests of your loved one above your own." Anthony's heart stung when the nurse finished saying this. He knew she was right. Rachel loved their unborn baby more than anything in the world and would have blindly chosen to save the child's life without a second thought if she were in his shoes. So with a heavy heart, Anthony made the most painful choice of his life. "Save the baby," he tearfully told the doctor 5 minutes later. His voice trembled, and his legs refused to balance his weight. Anthony was so shaken that he collapsed on the chair in the hallway as the operation began. With each passing second, he knew Rachel was slowly going away from him and would be gone too soon. Over an hour later, the door opened, and the doctor approached Anthony with another tear-jerking news. "Mr. Reynolds, please come in," said the doctor as she led him to the hospital crib in the NICU. Anthony's eyes wouldn't stop streaming with tears when he saw his tiny baby wriggling her arms and legs. It was a moment mixed with joy and sorrow. Anthony couldn't imagine a world without Rachel, and just as he uncontrollably broke down, the doctor told him that his wife was still alive. "Mr. Reynolds, her condition is still unstable. We're not able to say anything now, but there's still a slim chance. Please stay strong. We're trying our best. Believe in miracles because no amount of darkness can put out a tiny flicker of light." Those words struck Anthony's heart with hope as he begged and fought with God to save his wife's life. His heart was heavy when he entered Rachel's ward hours later, and the sight of her lying conscious on the bed with the heart rate monitor still beeping lifted his spirits. Anthony dropped to his knees before his wife, unable to express how happy he was to see her alive. And then, all of a sudden, he heard Rachel's voice calling out to him. "I know everything, love. You were given a choice. I'm happy you chose our baby. Come here," said Rachel, lifting her arms and gesturing for Anthony to come closer to her. When he gently hugged her and felt her warmth, Anthony realized he'd made the right decision in honoring his wife's wish. He also knew she would have never forgiven him if he'd not saved their baby. And Rachel's love and joy shone through every drop of tear she shed that day. "I love you," she whispered, and Anthony knew she meant it. The couple was so delighted, and Anthony's love for his wife and baby girl grew stronger with each passing day. Rachel had given him the most precious gift, and he promised her he would always cherish it until his last breath. Rachel was hospitalized for a few more weeks to heal and recover from postpartum stress and surgery. One day as Anthony walked through the hospital hallway toward Rachel's ward, he felt a sense of nostalgia. It was the same spot where he had made the toughest decisions of his life. And then, he saw her, the nurse who had guided him from the darkness to light during that difficult time. "Hey there, congrats, Daddy." The nurse greeted Anthony with a big fat smile beaming across her face. But as they hugged, Anthony felt something unusual. There was a small bump on her belly. "Ha ha ha. Are you pregnant?" he asked, surprised and smiling. "Yes, but..." The nurse paused as tears welled up in her eyes. "I have the same problem your wife had." but I've decided that no matter what happens, I'll do all it takes to bring my baby into this world," she added with a confident smile. Anthony hugged her tightly as tears gushed into his eyes. "Whatever happens, we will be there for you and your baby. You can always count on me for any help, okay?" he said, assuring the nurse with his kind words. As Anthony left to meet his wife and baby daughter Jeannie, he couldn't shake off the feeling of watching someone else go through the same struggle. Deep down, he felt a sense of hope a miracle would save both the nurse and her baby, just like how it saved his wife and their baby. And he knew that no matter what fate threw his way, he would always choose love, for that was the only thing that truly mattered.